Hi, my name is April Foster, and this is God's Mighty Hand, Lesson 6. All right, so this week we'll start with a word of prayer. It is a packed lesson, so we might save that memory work till the end, and then we'll go into the lesson and our activities at the end. All right, so like I said, it's a packed lesson, and so this week starts with only one plague, which is the death of the firstborn, but it's kind of, there's a lot of information that goes into it, and I love covering it because some of these are the more small details that do get repeated again in the New Testament, and those connections can be made. All right, so the lesson begins with God telling Moses that he would pass through the land of Egypt and the firstborn son of every family would die, and that no Egyptian would escape this plague. But that the Israelites could escape if they did something. So they were given an action to take, and so that was to put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. And the lamb had to be special. The lamb had to be a male lamb, and we'll talk about that. And that is in your lesson narrative. All these talking points about, and some of the scriptures too that pertain to it, that the lamb had to be a boy. It had to be without blemish. What does that mean? It means there's nothing wrong with the lamb. There's no cuts on it. There's no scrapes. There's no defects in the lamb. And then also it talks about the unleavened bread. They were supposed to eat unleavened bread. And we talk about what is unleavened versus what is leavening. I love to make cinnamon rolls, so my kids know that it takes a long time for those cinnamon rolls to rise, so I have to get up early in the morning. And then for them, they didn't have much time, so they didn't have time for that bread to rise, so it would be unleavened, it'd be flat. And anyway, they were supposed to take the lamb's blood and put it on the doorpost of the house. And so there's an activity tied to that at the end. And the families that followed these rules would be safe, and the passages are included in there. When God passed over the land to kill the firstborn and saw the blood on the door, he would pass over the Israelites that he would, and their firstborn would not die, but in the land of Egypt, the Egyptians, their firstborn would die. And this all happened in one night, and so you'll see that a lot of the visuals this week are dark. You should be able to see them fine in class, but they're dark because it all happened at night. So after the plague of darkness, what God said that Pharaoh's heart was still hard, he passed through the land, and when Pharaoh learned that his son died, he called Moses and Aaron and told them they could leave Egypt and to take everything they had. And also with that, the Egyptians gave them gifts and money. You can see God's hand working in this, and that's a good thing to point out. It's also included in the lesson narrative. The Israelites had been there for 430 years, and so there were 600,000 people approximately. And so God had indeed been keeping these promises of land, nation, and seed. And so this is obviously him acting on these promises now. All right, so they leave in the middle of the night, and they head out into the desert. All right, and that is the cliffhanger we leave that lesson with. All right, so the things to finish up this week are your little booklet. So you'll draw the plague, the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn. If you want to reorder these little cards put them all in order. And then for the younger kids, there's this activity. And what I usually do is have just washable paint and some paint brushes and let the kids use a paintbrush and a little bit of paint and paint the doorpost, and then answer the questions below, which are just a circle type questions. So good for levels 1 and 2. There's also a review game that's good for all ages. So you'll have your review questions here. They're included in the free download. And the way this one works is you have lambs in here, and some are great. Some look like nice boy lambs that are without spot or blemish. And then some, let me find a blemished lamb. Oh, some have problems with them. And so you're gonna turn these lambs upside down, or in my case, I just like to put them in a little bag that they can't really see inside. And you ask them a question. So what was plague number 1? That's one of the questions. So they would say water to blood. They get to pick a lamb. And if the lamb has a blemish, they do not get a point. If it does not have a blemish, then they get a point. And that's the extent of the game. And you can tally them up at the end if you want to play teams or singles, however you wish. But that just keeps them engaged as you're asking those review questions. And so as you can see, it's a very packed lesson for lesson number 6, but it's a good one. And we will move on to lesson number 7.